welcome. You're watching Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Batra, and this is a special edition where our focus is on the Q2 earnings. The company on our radar is Lupin. The company has reported quarterly results which are better than expectations this time around. 22% growth in the revenues front compared to the same period last year. The net profit has now jumped to close to 490 odd crore rupees from 129 odd crore rupees last year, which is a jump of 3.7 times as well. The operating profit or the EBITDA has doubled on a year-on-year basis to 917 odd crore rupees. The margins have also expanded pretty sharply by 700 basis points vis-a-vis last year too. Now, to tell us some more insights on what really led to the strong performance in this quarter, and will this performance also be seen in the coming quarters too, Mr. Ramesh Swaminathan, ED and Global CFO, Head of Corporate Affairs at Lupin, joins in. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Congratulations on the strong set of numbers, beat on most of the accounts that the analysts were penciling in. What really led to the strong performance in Q2, and more importantly, can the growth and these numbers be sustainable going forward?
Firstly, thank you for having us on and asking a lot of questions in the same breath. Yes, the performance has been led by America, where we've actually been, looking at a very rich pipeline going forward, and a lot of this has come to fruit. This particular quarter, we had, in fact, the Spiriva launch. Last quarter was Darnavir. And of course, we have, in fact, a host of other products also that we have lined up, pivoting to actually complex generics. But you could also see that there has been growth coming in from Europe, where we were, the respiratory portfolio is of course gaining ground there as well. Foster, Lufobec, generic Lufobec is doing well in UK and potentially other parts of Europe as well. So that's the European story. Equally in India, it's been an impressive performance, 6.9% growth in line with, in fact, the market. And if you look at the therapy areas that we generally are dominant in, cardiovascular, the respiratory space, the GI, women's health, they have all done very well, exceeding the market. In a general sense, I think a lot of engines firing really. That's really the kind of portfolio that we had lined up, which is playing. But having said that, it's actually all-round execution, which really is the key. So whilst the top line has really helped dramatic, in terms of a dramatic shift, we also have, in fact, a lot of initiatives that we had kind of carried forward over time, essentially focusing on reining in costs on various fronts, essentially looking at the various initiatives that are taken in terms of alternate vendor development, in terms of routes to synthesis, and of course the workforce planning that we kind of initiated across various factories at the R&D level, SG&A expenses, and a host of other things that we said were essentially inefficiencies because of supply chain issues and so on, which you kind of addressed over time, and still some more work to go, so to speak, on that front. All of that, and of course on the compliance front, so essentially we had issues with at least 5 factories, of which 3 have been settled, so to speak, and some tailwinds in terms of potentially prices stabilizing in America, and of course on the input cost front, so you find that there's a little there's been respite on that score. Prices have receded a bit, and some tailwinds in the government in terms of potentially the PLI schemes. All of this actually have resulted in pretty decent outcomes across all the parameters that you just spoke about.
Absolutely, sir. So you did talk about how growth was led in the US markets, which contributes almost 40% of the overall top line or sales for you. $200 million is something that we had been waiting for several quarters. Finally, it's happened now. So also the launch of Spiriva generic inhaler, that has been a key contributor, as you mentioned. Recently, the company also announced the launch of injections, the roconium bromide injections, the asthma medicine as well. Tell us the potential now you see in the US market because of this new launch as well, the incremental growth that you're penciling in.
No, so speaking about Spiriva, given the fact that there's no other competition, so to speak, from a generic perspective, I think it is good to go for several more quarters, so to speak. We're doing fairly well when it comes to albuterol itself, and as I said, there are a lot more launches lined up going forward, So all of this will certainly help in kind of sustaining the pace at least a 200 mark That would be potentially the anchoring point, and then growth from there. We have been working on, in fact, creating complex generics platforms, so potentially a host of geographies. So generics is all about actually leveraging the portfolio across various markets, and we would like to carry that across various platforms. So respiratory space, the biosimilars, injectables, all of this would potentially come together to mark a fresh beginning insofar as Lupin is concerned.
Okay, you did talk about pricing being stable now. Some quarters before you were facing severe issues when it comes to price erosions. Have those issues been completely ebbed now? Are they in control? What is the outlook there, sir?
It's a lot better than what it was a few quarters ago. That has come out because companies have shed their portfolio. You actually hear of drug shortages of a different kind, and of course, the rising interest rates have also meant that factories have been closed down and so on. And from our perspective, also three facilities have been clients. All of this
Okay.
have kind of help us to move the top line.
Okay, so you did talk about a lot of launches that are planned. Could you give us more granular details on that? Any particular products where you are expecting US FDA approvals to come in the next 1 or 2 quarters?
Focus, of course, has been on getting more complex, products into the market. So I think that insofar as respiratory is concerned, I think we have actually given you a good flavor for, at least insofar as the recent launches go, Albuterol, Spiriva, all of these will have a good run going, for some more quarters and so on. Like in America, in Europe, there are products lined up for the cyanocobalamin. Then there's a whole host of injectable products. You have ophthalmic products, which should also come in during the course of the year itself. And going forward, if you fast forward to the next 5 years, I would say about the good contribution.
Okay, I guess there is some technical glitch, so we are not able to hear your answer, properly. But let's try and figure out from our PCR as well if we can fix that. Meanwhile, I'll quickly try and ask you on the India prospect as well, sir. The India growth was this time around 7% odd. And this contributes a third of the total or overall top line as well. Year on year, it has grown 1,691 odd crore rupees. What's the outlook on the India business? You did talk about some of the policy level changes, the PLI introduction that has really helped you. But analysts were somehow penciling an 8 to 9% odd growth. Are you happy with the 7% growth overall, and or are there any pressures that you'd like to tell us?
We're pretty happy with our overall growth. If you actually look at the first half, so the first quarter, of course, was a resounding growth. You should see the second quarter in the context of NLEM. So essentially, if you were to knock that impact out, then potentially looking at another 2 percentage points higher. So that would be closer to the 9 percentage points, so to speak. So that's the first point. Secondly, as I said, there have been issues in terms of loss of exclusivities on a few products, especially on the diabetes front. And that's costed us quite a bit because those products don't have the same price point. You would say that we are at least a good 30% above the market, and very, very, very strong. Given the fact that we've added a good 1,000 people in Q last year, but certainly play from the second, third, fourth quarters, and that would actually mean good growth for us. And we're very optimistic about the prospects for the company, in the India arena.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, sir, for being with us on the show and discussing all these insights about your quarterly earnings. All the very best for the coming quarters as well. And here's hoping for more interactions to get more insights about your business too.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will quickly wrap up this edition, but do stay tuned on to Business Today Television to catch all the updates from the world of business and stock markets.